it comes to the ag industry, most don't immediately think of hay farmers, but their contribution is critical to our sector. Tonight, we learn how to get better hay yields, increase revenue, and create better value with benefit extenders in your operation with Energy Curve.
Good evening to you and welcome to Rural America Live. I'm Tammy Arender. So good to be with you. Healthier soil can go a long way to improving hay quality. And tonight, we're also talking about more nutrient-dense hay that leads to creating better beef by using the benefit hay system from Energy Curve. And they have a special promotion that we're going to tell you about, so please stick around to find out more about that. First, I want to introduce you to our Energy Curve President and CEO, Todd Sears, formulation scientist Ben Elliott, and Vice President of Hay, Grain, and Fiber, Joel Mollers. Guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. Looking forward to this visit. But before we get into the specifics of benefit hay, let's meet you guys. Give us a little background on yourself, Todd.
Thank you. Our family farm is located in Garden City, Missouri. We're an actually organic certified farm, and we've been there. I've spent most of my life in the ag technology industry, and over the last 4 years, me and the team, we've really put our efforts into Energy Curve and to see the benefits of things that are happening.
Ben?
Well, I'm actually the most local of us, so I grew up here in Tennessee, and my family farmed in West Tennessee, and I just developed a passion for the science behind agriculture, and through my education, really put myself in a position to be a formulation scientist in the industry. Very good. Joel?
I grew up on a farm in Iowa, and I've worked most of my life in various jobs in the ag industry, and actually met Todd several years ago when he was building a company called IntelliFarms, and I began working with him then. And have a Charolais herd of cattle, so we use our products for our own herd of cattle.
I love that fact that you guys are still on the ground. You're still in the agriculture industry, and so you know what you're talking about. For those who may not be familiar with what Energy Curve is, let's give an overview of the company.
So Todd and I founded the company as Energy Curve Technology because our main focus was to get the most nutrient-dense crop. And in doing so, we had to understand the energy centers of what it took to grow that crop and from the soil as well. So we named the company Energy Curve Technology for that reason.
I love the backstory on that. It makes so much sense now to learn that. So many of our ranchers and those who have livestock now really struggling with how to take care of that herd and get that herd where it needs to be. So we're going to talk about hay tonight and the benefit hay system. So Ben, let's talk about what that is and the difference between it and other fertility products.
So hay is probably one of the most neglected crops, and it's constantly in the back seat. And so we wanted to develop a fertility system that, like I said, it brought about the most nutrient-dense product that we could feed cattle. And so farmers needed kind of a boost in how that crop was grown and understanding the difference in a biological program and how it worked with commodity or commercial fertilizer.
Yeah, looking at some of the different things, like you say, you're the scientist in the group, so you can kind of break all that down for us right there.
Yeah, so the benefit hay only, and what we're looking at here is a statistical test that we did side by side with other fertilizers in the market. So benefit hay is that first statistic you see there, and then the 70-30-70 plus liquid lime is the second test result that you see there. And ACP obviously improved from the benefit hay. And then looking at a 70-30-70 fertility blend only, you can see there was a massive difference, and it just always shows that applying a biological system brings about this quality.
Right, there's some good substantial numbers there, and that shows
Absolutely.
you what it does. We hear a lot of talk about microbes. Are they kind of considered a one-jug wonder, so to speak?
Well, bugs in a jug gets a bad rap sometimes, but what we understand is we have to create biomimicry, and we have to look at the fact that Mother Nature has many tens of thousands of species present in our soils and on our plants. And so we have to do the job of making that work as closely with the natural environment in the soil and in the plant as we possibly can, because that's how we bring about quality too, is getting more nutrients synthesized by the biology into the plant for that health.
Right. So many areas of our country right now dealing with drought and have been for years. I mean, this has been a lingering tough patch for those who are raising cattle and trying to feed them. So what conditions, drought conditions, having an impact on how benefit hay works?
Oh, absolutely. Having a very diverse entourage effect of microbiology in a system like this, we actually can cycle water through the microbiology itself too, and we notice that we can hold water better because of the activity of the microbiology, but we can also deliver that water back to the crop more efficiently. So it only makes sense that we try to mimic Mother Nature's best efforts to create a good crop.
Right. Most of the time, she knows best.
That's right.
She can be a mean woman, but she also knows best.
That's right.
Joel, let's switch over and switch gears to you right now. Let's do some comparisons, so to speak.
Okay.
What would you say the benefit hay compared to other biologicals? How does it stack up?
Well, I think first and foremost, most other biological products are formulated to augment an existing fertility program. The benefit hay system will do that, but it is a standalone fertility system on its own. It's a 20-20-20 NPK formula plus micronutrients. So in addition to what Ben talked about with the entourage of microbes that we're reintroducing to the soil and into the crop, it's a full fertility program as well.
What about comparing, like, is yield determined more by nature or by the method?
The real answer is both.
Okay.
It takes both. For example, one thing that we do that is largely overlooked is we do aeration on all of our pasture acres and all of our hay acres. Rain is a significant factor in compaction. And aeration opens up the soil where your pasture and your hay acres they're normally not tilled. So it's an opportunity to open up the soil. There's biology in the soil that needs to gas off. And there's also nitrogen in the atmosphere, and aeration accommodates that exchange. So that's one, idea of practices. The biological fertility program is natural, so it's naturally sourced nutrients instead of synthetically sourced nutrients. So that's a way of working with nature. We've just learned that it's better to work with Mother Nature than to try to force Mother Nature synthetically to do something that it really wasn't, in a way that it wasn't designed to do.
Right. A big benefit there. Ben, I want to get you to weigh in on this as well, and the difference between nature and methods.
Absolutely. It takes method for us to accommodate nature. And so like Joel mentioned, we want to be aerating the soil so that we can take in atmosphere, and then that atmosphere being made up of primary nutrients be synthesized into something a plant can use. But again, in nature, we're creating a biomimicry out there so that we can turn more of that available nutrition into something a plant can take in. One of the things that we notice is that growers really have to focus on the best practices for their environment. And that aeration may mean you do it a couple of times a year. It may mean you do it once. And that really is what we talk about when we talk about the best practices and going back to some of those old operations that are not really expensive, but very helpful to us.
Right. And so it can be where a producer, he needs to know his field, he needs to know what he's got there, and Absolutely. He can figure out how often he needs to do that. Todd, can it just be used on pastures?
No, we actually use it in pastures, also in our hay operation. A lot of things we try to start with, especially with our mama cows, because all of us here have our own herds. And we try to start there with making sure that she is able to go through reproductive stages, lactation, different energy stages of her life. And so we do that in the pasture first. And then it not only starts there, but it goes right into the hay operation.
When you start this process, do you have to remove the cattle from the field?
No, with the actual hay program itself, there's a picture there that showed us spraying right there with the mama cows in the same pasture. That's one thing that's really beneficial for us because we have 179 mama cows, and to have to move them or rotate them every time we sprayed would be pretty difficult. So, some of the products that we have, like Hydro, we ask you to, do a 48-hour remove them off if you're going to spray Hydro. Hydro was really designed around the drought. So we use it a lot in the turf industry, but we introduced it, and we're starting to see it more and more used in the cattle industry for hay and stuff. So we do ask you to remove them for 48 hours if you're going to spray that product. But on the natural hay side of it, no, it doesn't affect the rumen or anything like that, while they're in the pasture. So
I know that you said you wanted to be able to get the most out of that hay. So I'm assuming there was a light bulb moment for you too when you said, okay, we've got to come up with something here. So can you kind of go back in time and tell us how that light bulb moment happened for this company and this product?
Well, since I'm from Missouri, we're the show me state, and so I always take it really serious because I've spent my grandfather was a dairyman in Missouri, and as a kid you watch how they really struggle, and a lot of times he had a secondary job just to make sure he could keep the farm going. And so that's been my passion as, really leading the charge, is to make sure that we hear our customers, we understand them, but we do it ourselves. And so a lot of times it feels like in the ag industries, there's a lot of young people that have questions. And I call it the whack-a-mole effect, but they ask a simple question and we start the conversation by criticizing the equipment they have, or, why did you, and so they quit asking questions. So that's why we have our own research farms. We have 750 acres of organic farms that we ask people to come and visit. And you can see, we're not going to argue with you about things. We just want you to come out and see what we're doing. And in that's really what has driven our passion in the industry to really make it work.
I think you brought up a great point, too. When these young people express an interest in this, we need to keep them engaged. And you've made a great living at taking, hey, I enjoyed the sciences, not just farming, but you enjoyed the sciences. And now you've been able to put it to work, haven't you? So it's really encouraging to our younger people who want to be involved with technology. That's what they want to do. That's what their passion is. So you can kind of combine the two, can't you?
Absolutely. And microbiology is such a growing field in research right now. When I started my education, we basically only understood about 10% of what we know today. And it's kind of similar to electronics. Every 2 years, we double our knowledge at half the cost. And so it's exciting to see that we take some of what's been a part of our livelihood, and we're only just now fully understanding more every year, and making that a part of the technology that grows better crops and more nutrient-dense crops.
Right. And so it is so impressive how technology has come in. And Joel, back to you on that front. Let's go back and talk more about the difference in the biologicals and what makes Benefit Hay and what you guys have such a superior product.
Well, the best example I can give that I like to give customers is that after years and years of the chemical applications, in a lot of cases, the soil is lacking some of the diversity, the entourage that Ben has talked about. So what's unique about it is it's reintroducing that broad spectrum, that entourage. It's got to reproduce. There's a process to that, but it needs to reproduce and repopulate in the soil. But the benefits of that is significant, like drought tolerance and the things that we've talked about. The improvements down the road, it pays over many times.
And I think that's the bottom line. I mean, that's what our producers need to hear is that, hey, if I'm going to put extra money into it, what is my return on investment? But you say it's definitely worth it, and you guys have seen it.
Yes,
absolutely.
I think it's also important. Joel does a really good job with this, that a lot of times in agriculture we base everything per acre cost, but he does a really good job of showing people what it costs to increase your production. So when you increase your production, I always tell people there's only two ways to make money in business: cut costs or drive revenue. So, for us, that's our main thing, is to make sure we have a quality hay that we all start with yield first. That's our first love language, and we talk about that first, but from there, the density of the nutrients, things like that, is what's going to drive the markets.
How has drought, I mean, like you say, you guys are having to feed your own herds in your area, so I don't know how serious it is right where you live, but how has the drought impacted the pastures and the hay fields in your area?
I would say everybody in our county is under a relief program. And I kind of had a self-check the other night. We was cutting some of our fields, and we were yielding 10 tons an acre. And I was going to town. I was telling them, man, look what we've done on 5 inches of rain. We're yielding. And after I was done, I felt kind of bad because I thought a lot of my neighbors are struggling right now to have hay. And so I reached back out to them and said, I didn't mean that to be, bragging. It was just, if you need help, we're here to help you.
Right, right, and you've seen it. What about at your place?
So what I've seen is that quality that we're always shooting for. So the better we do with quality, the less pounds it takes for a cow to gain a pound of weight. Right. And so that cost is driven way down by quality. And yield is a function of our quality too. So the better our quality becomes, the more nutrient dense it becomes. And adding this biological piece to it and creating the pro and prebiotic system that a rumen really needs to sustain its cycle has been very beneficial, especially in these drought conditions where even hay that's harvested normally is really suffering over the nutrient load and how the quality is affected.
What about your area in Iowa? Drought issues?
It's drought, yeah. We've drought, but it's not to the degree near that there is in like Cass County, Missouri. Yeah. I mean, that's severe drought, and it's the second year. Yeah. So we didn't get a lot of moisture over the winter either. So not only is that 5-6 inches of rainfall, that's the second year of drought. So the subsoil moisture is not there either.
Right. Yeah. So we were seeing a lot of issues with that, and a story of extremes in a lot of areas too. I mean, we also know some farmers that have gotten too much rain.
Too much, yeah.
So as I said, Mother Nature can always throw us some curveballs. But we are actually going to take a quick break, and we're going to open up our phone lines here shortly. So jot this down: 877-731-6733. If you have a question about your pastures, what's going on with your hay, and how Benefit Hay and Energy Curve can help, we do hope that you will become a part of the conversation. So 877-731-6733. We'll be right back with more Rural America Live. Well, Energy Curve has a very special promotion for you tonight. If you go to their website, energycurve.com/RFDTV, and use the promo code RFDTV, you can get a 40% discount on their hay products. So jot that down. Use code RFDTV to get that discount. So, of course, welcome back now to Rural America Live and Energy Curve. Our phone lines are open. Our panelists are ready to take your questions. You are a very important part of this show, so give us a call, 877-731-6733. Now, before we dive into those calls, we do want to share the story of one farm's success using the Benefit products.
We are row crop farmers in northeast Kansas. We run corn and soybeans, and then quite a few cover crops. We got cow-calves and feeders. Well, we went to the meeting and we were needing to maximize our feed that we had because brome is hard to find around here. I mean, anything that somebody can get a 16-row planter or 30-foot bean head across, they're gonna basically farm. So we wanted to maximize what we were already putting up, and we had a inoculator for the baler already, so we decided to give some a try, and just kind of took off from there, I guess. So we did side-by-side rye, and we did side-by-side triticale, and we were pretty impressed with both of them, actually. So as far as our triticale went, RFV, it was 73 on the untreated, and it was 94 on the treated. Protein had increased. It was 7.49 on the untreated, and 13.67 on the treated. Rye that was treated was 8.58 on protein, and the rye that was untreated was 6.19. RFV on the rye that was untreated was 69, and the RFV on the rye that was treated was 81.
Always love hearing it straight from the farmer's mouth, don't we? And knowing that it had an impact and he got to see it right there and break that down for you. Joel, I know most people are going, okay, if I do this, what's it going to cost me per acre?
Right. That's always one of the very first questions is what's it going to cost? We like to remind people that, if you're especially if you're in the cattle business, we're in the cattle business, so it doesn't do us any good to produce more cardboard, right? It's all about, like Ben said, it's about the nutrient density, and we can gain more on more nutrient dense hay. So the real question is, what does it cost to produce? Because if we're producing more, but it's of no value or of lesser value, it's not. We didn't win, right? So the real question is, what does it cost us to produce per ton of hay, a good quality, nutrient dense hay? And for us, our cost is about $10 per ton of hay that we produce is our full fertility cost on the full program. It really depends on how many acres we're doing, and there's a lot of variables in there, but for us and for what we're able to produce off the fertility that we apply, it's about $10 a ton.
Okay. And so that's got to be a good value because, like you're saying, you're increasing those nutrients, and that cow is going to put on more weight. So is that what we're talking about in terms of this is a good value or a better value?
Yes, it is. So that picture we just saw with all the hay bales at our research farm, that was actually raised on right at 220 acres, 3,900 bales. And so when you think about value, a lot of times we cut hay once a year. We cut hay now 3 times a year because we're driving production. And so, this segment, we really want to talk about, the value side of it. So when you think about, triticale and the increase of the proteins and the relative feed value, that is everything to do with what you're going to end up with, what type of quality meat. So for us, we have our feed facility takes it directly to consumers. So we have to end up with a superior product. So it does us no good to try to cut cost on a cheaper feed. We have to every pound going in, for every pound fed is how many pounds gained. So that was kind of really from the beginning, that was our start, was we started with production in the hayfield because that was what we needed most. And then with the extenders is where we started driving the value with really, for us in Missouri, it's fescue. And we get docked a lot of times at the sales because of fescue foot and different things that go on in the cattle industry. But for us, we were taking mediocre hay and making it superior hay.
Right, so definitely a value there. Ben, he mentioned extenders. Talk about benefit extenders and how they work, and as it could go on dry or in baleage and everything.
Sure. The extenders can be used in any type of hay or feed system, even in silage. And so we understand that we have to deliver either more of a globular protein or a strand protein, and the extenders help us build that out for whatever we're doing. If we're backgrounding cattle or if we're fattening cattle on hay, the extenders do both of those in all hay types. So in baleage, absolutely. In dry hay, it can. The only thing is you'll have like an outer part of it that's exposed to the weather that may be a little bit different. But the core of that bale and the microbiome that's in that bale is what we're going for. We want to feed that to support that digestive system so that the cattle can take in more of the nutrition that they're consuming.
And what about applying the extenders?
So technically they can be applied anytime after the hay is cut. We like to apply it on the baler. We have a liquid inoculant system on our baler, so we're applying it as we're baling. Like Ben said, we want that product in the bale, so throughout the hay. And for us, the easiest way to do it is on the baler.
So it's a pretty easy, simple process.
Very
being
much.
Able to do that. We have mentioned the fact that drought has been going on for at least 2 years now in a lot of parts of the country. So that means we have some marginal hay fields out there. So is this impactful when it's already marginal?
So that is where we started, because when we first started, we actually developed the backgrounding first. That's a high protein. So we're adding the proteins to the grasses. And we did that because for us, we're in a not so lucky cattle market that we had to create our own niche markets. And so with the backgrounding, it enables us to add the protein basis to it. And then after we got that and we saw that we could put frame on cattle and we could really get some where we could next go to the next step, that's actually where the fattening came from. So, we were sitting there one day, me and Ben talking, and I said, how do we do this that I don't have to spend a lot of capital, that I don't have to go out and, reinvent everything we're doing, but we grow grass. And in Missouri, it's not that special. So we didn't rip up all of our pastures and replant everything. We are evolving into better genetics, but we started and we still have about 200 acres of just domestic type grasses. And so with the fattening in it, that's where, and Ben will speak to this in a little bit, but is where we started to mimic things like the carbohydrates that are in corn, the starches, things like that we could add that right to the windrow and bale it up into the deal. So when we bring our calves in from our moms, we'll take them from 5 to 8 weights using the backgrounding, and then we switch over using the fattening to finish them out. So think about a calf, he's used to eating that same grass in the ration, so we don't have a bunk breaking, we don't have to go through all that. They know how to eat grass. So they come right up to the, and we brought in 70 last year, and we had them at, they were eating within an hour. They were at the bunks eating. So it's things like that when you think about, loss, revenue. We're dealing with consumers now that want an all-natural type product. We've been beat up with the antibodies, things like that. So, it's things like that. Farmers have to be willing to look outside the box and really start making some changes to drive that revenue to come back to their farms.
Right, and when they see the result of that,
yes,
and the value in that, they will certainly do it. All right, we have Charles from Missouri. Charles, what's your question? Oh, we lost Charles. Well, hopefully he will call back. And again, if you would like to be a part of the conversation and you have a question. Charles, can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right, Charles, you are on Rural America Live. What's your question?
I was just wondering about how this product does through drought conditions, and do you guys see a dip in the quality of production using this?
Were you able to hear that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, Charles, first thing is we always start with quality. So even when Mother Nature throws us something that is out of the norm, the benefit system is designed to uphold the quality of that product. And our experience through the drought conditions that we're seeing on our own farms in western Missouri is that our quality still stays very elevated compared to our neighbors even, or other hays that we've grown in the past in similar conditions or with other clients. So the system is designed to uphold that quality first so that we can more efficiently feed that system even when yields can come down as a result of severe drought and other issues. Good question, Charles.
Yeah, good question. Thank you so much for calling in. 877-731-6733 if you would like to ask a question tonight. Ben, let's go back to you and continue this conversation on how extenders work. Can it work on silage as well?
Absolutely. It can be applied to the silage as it's being chopped, or it can be applied to the pile as it's being stacked and packed. And what happens there is it takes even a little less time in silage because we have some more biological systems at work for us in those types of environments. And we see, early development of globular type proteins in it, and that's what helps us really fatten cattle out. One of the things we make certain of is through our technology, we introduce growers with a grass-fed goal to understand that they can do that while mimicking the grain-fed result. And so through silage and really getting that silage acclimatized to where it's stacked and then conditioned for those right feeding elements, it works great every time. We see increases in relative feed values every time. We see increases in proteins and both types of those proteins that are necessary in those stages.
Talk to the fact that all fields are different. Obviously, everybody in a different region of the United States is dealing with something different right now, even though many are dealing with drought. But is there a regional difference on how this would work somewhere, like somebody who has hay fields in the southeastern United States as opposed to somebody in Montana? So
really the only difference is operational. It's timing. The product itself, again, has such great biodiversity in it that it's adapted to be used anywhere on any type of crop, especially in the hay world. But it really fits any operation at any time. So down south, the deeper south we get, the earlier it gets applied, and the faster the program can work because of the ambient weather and temperatures and everything that goes along with storing that hay. So the system can work faster, and in the northern part of the United States, it tends to work a little bit slower and applied later in the year. But that's why we built it on biodiversity and expanding that entourage effect so that we could take it anywhere we needed to, and it work and show those results in all situations.
And two, I was noticing when we showed that picture of the research farm, you guys are probably getting a real good handle on the timing of that, and then you have people that can go out and help these ranchers do that themselves because you know the timing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Todd, let's talk about timing at your place. You said you have Charolais cattle. That's what you're feeding. Tell us a little bit about kind of a typical day for Joel there and how you use this product.
Well, so I'm not actually working the herd myself.
Oh, he's got you working. Yeah. He's got you full time.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Our herd is on the research farm down there, and we've got a full-time farm manager who takes care of the cattle, and I keep the calving records. And he takes care of them on a day-to-day basis. Right.
Talk a little bit, too, about that research farm. And are you guys hands-on there, or you've got a team that's working on that?
It's my family that runs it. So my oldest son is the herdsman and also overall the hay operation. He loves it just because it's something as a younger person he's really starting. He gets to be able to be around technology that a lot of younger people probably don't have the access to. So, I have to say this, it's always good for when the older farmers come out. They also have a deep respect for a young person really getting out there and working hard. So it's a good thing. Ben also has a herd too of some red Angus, and so he takes care of them also, and it's fun. I mean, it's something that we do every day. But one thing I think is really important for us too with the research farm is that we learn our failures. So when we do mess up on some things, or we don't get the right crops, or we try things and it didn't work, we have the confidence to know that, like I tell people, we're going to be there good or bad. We're going to own it, and we're going to work through it together and help you to make sure you're successful.
Well, and oftentimes failure leads to success. You had to learn somewhere. You had to start somewhere. So you were able to do that. If you were just joining us tonight on Rural America Live, we are visiting with Energy Curve, and we are talking about Benefit Hay and their system that can help you on your ranch feeding your livestock, because we know you're having difficulties. So many people now dealing with drought and getting enough hay and feed to keep that cattle going. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open. You can call in with your questions for any of our panelists. That number is 877-731-6733. And don't forget, you can get 40% off hay products with Energy Curve by heading to their website, energycurve.com/RFDTV. And you use that code RFDTV, and you will get that great discount. Boy, you can't beat that. Matter of fact, let's talk about the value here, because I really believe that so many of our farmers and ranchers, it is about the bottom line and how much money's got to come out of their pocket before they see that return on investment.
On my behalf, I mean, I'm the guy that's looking at it from the outside. Even though we're out there on the farms every day looking at it, it's still got to make economic sense. And so I always love, our program is developed around they can start right where they're at. So we don't ask them to replant a new variety. We don't ask them, let's look at where you're at, what kind of crops you have, and how can we help you? And I think that really helps them, because they have most of the equipment already on their farm to do everything we're doing. To get the same results we're getting, they have everything they need right there on the farm. And only thing we ask is a lot of times is they'll just change some of the ways they think, because I think they've done the same thing for a long time and got the same results. So, for us, and if they still are unsure of it, that's when we ask them to come to the research farm. And I love when I have 80-year-old farmers come out and say, Todd, one of our farms that we have on the research was actually, he stood there and he said, my dad cut this with horses, the hay. And he said, I watch you guys come in, cut it, swath it, rake it, bale it, and you're done in a day. It took us 30 days with horses to cut this. And he at first he said, I don't know why my son got into this, but I'm glad he did. So it was neat. I love to hear that because we love to learn from them. But I think it's also very important to hear how they see the change and how beneficial it really is.
Well, it's got to be rewarding for all of you guys to see that, because you are increasing that bottom line by what you're offering out there. So I know that means a lot to you. You want to add to that?
Oh, I've got to say, we're all sitting here at this table as a culmination of our experiences on our own operations, but our experiences with those people that we have helped and that have reached out to us. I'm always impressed at our team. We're not afraid to take a step back every once in a while and learn some of those hard lessons. So the value here comes from, at the end of the day, we've got to lower that bottom line. We've got to get people to produce more efficient products for the farm, if not for anything else, but to be sustainable and regenerative in their practice. So that's what makes this very important to us. And again, we are here because of the culmination of experience with all of those growers out there across the country that we've worked with.
And I can tell by your passion and all of your passion that those weren't just buzzwords. We hear regenerative, we hear sustainable, we hear things like that. You guys have put it into practice, and it's benefiting our farmers and ranchers. Okay, well, I am loving this. We want to have you in the conversation as well. I think you would benefit a lot if you wanted to ask a question. Give us a call, 877-731-6733. We are going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Rural America Live with Energy Curve. I'm Tammy Arender. Our phone lines are open. You can give us a call at 877-731-6733. Now, before we get into those calls, though, I do want to note what hay producers and cattle producers think of Benefit Hay and that program, because honestly, we can talk about this all night long. But when you're hearing it from another farmer, that goes a long way. Take a listen.
I've been raising cattle for over 40 years, and whenever they're telling me you can finish cattle on hay and the kind of gains they were talking about, I just walked out skeptical. I was hopeful, but I was skeptical. My name is Jim Crust. I own a Red Tail Ranch here in Archie, Missouri. The first day they delivered my first load of hay, my cattle had been in for their grain ration. They were in fresh green grass, half knee high. I carried a bale out. The first calf, he got up, stuck his nose in there, he could smell it. The rest followed. I set the bale down. They absolutely devoured that bale in just a little bit. I thought, there's something to this. I did 65 acres of red clover. It produced just under 600 bales. I sent some steers over to be fed nothing but this hay. They were averaging 750 pounds when they got them. 40 days later, they're weighing 900 pound average. So, I mean, that's 3 3/4 pound a day. That's pretty good gain no matter what you're feeding, the lone hay. So I tell guys, hey, if you're feeding cattle and you ain't running this program, you're backing up.
That's quite a testimonial right there. If you're not feeding that hay, you're backing up. I like that. Frank from California, you are on Rural America Live tonight. What's your question?
Well, I got a couple of questions. We farm about 500 acres of wheat, oats, and ryegrass. And if you were to use this, would it be okay for horses? And the next question is, would you, or how much of it would you use? Are you talking 50 gallons an acre? Or are you talking 5 gallons? Or how does that work? And put in like an inoculator on the baler. So there it is. There's 3 or 4 questions.
Break it down for us.
All right. So, Frank, I want to say this first. It will work in those crops, and that's really where we started, was with those types of small grains and row crops, and understanding what it took for us to get the nutrient density there that we needed. And I'll say to you this, we really had to change our mindset from what we did for yield bump to yield preservation. And understanding what it took for us to hold on to a plant's ability to yield meant that we could get the enzymes right in the plant so that it didn't have effects in specialty animals or livestock that otherwise cause problems from other hay products. And so we took that right to the ground for a couple of years and utilized it through those small grain crops and row crops to develop how this system really worked before putting it into a fully fed system. When you talk about volumes here, it's ultra low volumes because we highly concentrate the biologics and the fertility that go along with the program itself and in each product. And so you're talking about a few gallons per acre, and in the preservation materials or what we call the hay extenders, it's very small use rates because of those concentrations of biology and nutrients that come along with that. And so the program put together usually is 3 steps throughout each growing cycle, and then a step when you're doing your baling operation and putting your hay up or whatever product it is. So in this system, you can feed to horses and other livestock. We just are cattle guys, and we build it mainly for our cows.
All right. Hopefully we've covered all of your questions there, Frank. Thanks for calling in. You can call in as well, 877-731-6733. I know a lot of our producers are probably thinking, all right, am I getting the result in this cattle, in this beef that I would if I fed them corn or grain-based? Can it create the marbling?
Yeah, again, we developed the system because Todd has a nice saying about this. We don't have to always be better than your grain feeders. We just have to be as good as you are. And understanding the fact that most grass-fed programs have problems like, utilizing keratins from a grass. Those keratins are what cause discoloration and yield or limit translocation of fats in the cow. So this system really is designed in that prebiotic and probiotic state to have microbes in there that help the cow push more of that keratin on through the system and access more of the nutrition that's there along with the proteins and different types of proteins. So short answer is yes, we can marble really well with this program because we understand, the science behind why that fat gets discolored and why meats don't get that intermuscular fat on grass-fed programs as usual.
All right. And I know that we were talking just a few minutes ago, Todd, about the extenders and using the 2 extenders. Why use those? Why use both of those?
Well, in itself, when you think about yield, you're still lacking something. Normally with just dominant hays, when you think about when you cut them in Missouri, a lot of times we cut right in the hottest time of the year. We leave it set out there. Hopefully it doesn't rain on it. This year it hadn't. And from there, it's just, we're done. We put it in the hedgerow, it sits there, and when we pull it out in the winter, we feed it. But we never think like breed backs, things like that, where we're dealing with the mama cows. And then the industry struggles with 25% non-breed backs to moms. And so when you think about that, that's where we started. That was the formulation, is how do we start answering these questions about milk production, higher fat content in the milk to raise, higher weaning calves, because all of that's where you're losing. And so if you're not staying on top of that, and so we even got into, cattle tubs, because that was a missing factor in our ration, was the micronutrients. So we had to answer that question. And so as we struggled through that, a lot of times, even like the marbling, we said in meetings, and where people would say, oh, you can't, grass-fed beef is metallic tasting, the fat's going to be yellowish, and consumers aren't, and I told my son, go butcher one. I'm tired of hearing this. And we butchered one at $11.50, and we put it up against grain-fed, and we actually won. Because they said our New York strip, with the chef said it was the best tasting New York strip. And so we didn't high-five each other that we'd beat somebody, but we had a product that, number one, the consumer's demanding, right? So with all the negativity out there, if you're not willing to hear your customer, you might be left to, by yourself and wonder why you're not selling your product. So we heard that time and time again. The consumer was saying, we want a beef that's all natural. And so, I've spent my whole life with grain, so I'm not against grain at all. And but it is a perception, and it's a niche market for us to be able to sell into a grass-fed operation and tell the whole story of what we do.
Right.
So,
and you have the taste test to prove it.
That's right.
By the consumer. And so we're all consumers of that great beef as well. I've heard some of our farmers and some of their testimonials and seen video of the benefit fattening bales. So when do you actually switch over to that product?
So if it's a calf, during the winter, we'll feed fattening bales to our mamas because that's when they need the most energy to raise that calf that's on their side. You're dealing with, Arctic type winds and everybody's out there trying to survive. And so think about this, as the baby's out there and it's growing, it starts to also nibble on the hay. And so that becomes part of our weaning process. So when we bring them into the feed facilities, they already are comfortable with that feed and they go right to it. So we see a lot less respiratory issues. We see a lot less things that normally you would fight in a feed facility. And so we brought in 70 last year, and we have not treated for anything since we've had them in our facility, and they have been strictly just on our hay program. And so when you think about dollars and cents, that's how you're going to have that niche market to be able to go and compete in a very competitive industry.
Well, and all of our producers, farmers and ranchers, they're looking at those input costs, which just have consistently over the last few years have gone up and up and up. So if they want to do a comparison, Joel, what are we looking at here on conventional feeding with this program?
So for us, like Todd said and Ben said, we have a grass-fed, so we're not feeding any grain whatsoever. Our cost for gain is it takes about 14 pounds of hay for us to put on a pound of gain. And our production cost on our hay, including the fertility, is about 2 cents a pound. So we're at about 28 cents a pound of feeding cost to put on a pound of beef. Which if you were to compare that to grain fed, that's probably one half to 1/4 of what it would be costing to feed grain to get the same results.
Wow, great comparison there. I had another question. Ben, if you add the extenders in, does that now make that hay a complete ration at that point by adding the extenders?
Well, the extenders, and again, this is a whole system, so it starts from the time we start growing the crop, but we consistently get 90-95% of the way there. And what we miss most in just the feeding side of it is the mineral content of that crop and that hay or silage. And so we really thought about this and looked at where our gaps were and how we were missing. We had veterinarians that were helping us analyze for that and see where we were missing nutritionals. And so we went back to the drawing board a couple of years ago and developed the benefit tubs. And so we have a finisher tub and a backgrounding tub as well. And those tubs are designed to be used at those key times when we're either bringing them up or we're fattening them out. And so that's where we found that gap and how we could close it pretty easily and pretty quickly.
When you talk, I hear you talk about a lot of the science and the technology behind this product. That has got to be huge, but a lot of our farmers and ranchers may not understand how that works, but they don't have to, do they? But talk about the technology behind this product and why it works.
Yeah, again, we started with something that had to be biologically based because the diversity of biology can deliver our savior. And at the same time, it can deliver some of the problems we experience on farms. And so this whole system from start to finish is about building out the most efficient cow and the most efficient food system to build that cow with. And so the science behind it really starts in that microbiological world that is the mycorrhizosphere of the plants that are growing through the plant itself. See, a lot of the language that's talked in microbiology does not even mention the fact that science goes into the plant with living organisms. As a carbon-based life form, some 25% of our DNA is not even human DNA, right? And it's the same principle in soil and plants. And so if we're stripping that potential DNA away from there that can be very beneficial to us to translocating nutrition, holding, storing, and giving back water, and then creating these systems through our livestock that make a better quality meat and do it at a lesser cost and maybe even a faster pace. If we can't understand that and really help growers do that, then we're wasting our time on our research anyway. And that's why it's very easy for us to adapt this at any point for any grower. So there's not a perfect entry. There's an entry everywhere at any time.
That is a good point to make. And is it something, it's an immediate, like on the first cut, you will see a result on the first cut, that hay is ready to be its optimum?
Absolutely. We see the statistical test of the nutrient load, the ash load, the neutral detergent fibers. Basically, every point that's tested in hay, we see an improvement in most, if not all, of those categories in one application. And, it's not always visual, right? Because like we're experiencing drought and we see farmers that come by our fields and go, wow, that's a huge hay crop out there, but why is it so yellow right now? We're still at the behest of what Mother Nature throws at us, right? And so with that, we tell people, don't expect a visual always. Go to the science. Have a test done in the hay before, after, treated and untreated, and start to wrap your head around the simple principles that define how well this system works for you.
Right. Let the science speak for itself. And I know you guys believe so much in the product that you actually have a guarantee, don't you?
We do, yeah. I had noticed that we had a lot of customers that were really taking our recommendations to the letter and were really following through in everything, Ben's recommendations on, backing out of the synthetic fertility, really following our recommendations to the letter. And then you've always got that group that just wants to try it, and they want to kind of try it their own way. So I approached Todd with the idea about offering a money-back guarantee if they were willing to follow our program completely. And so, we actually came up with a 100% money-back guarantee. It's a 3-year program. And if they're not satisfied, if they don't see increased nutrient density and increased yield, at the end of 3 years, we'll give them their money back. I don't think anybody offers that.
I have not heard that in a long time, but that just shows you how much you believe, and the results are there with what Energy Curve is doing in this particular sector. Guys, we just have a couple of minutes left, but I want to give each of you a chance because I know you all bring something to the table of what this product does. So very, very quickly, what would you like our viewers and listeners to walk away with tonight?
So I just want to remind people that we're a culmination of our experience, not just personally and on our own operations, but what we've learned across the country and in other parts of the world, we bring to battle for getting the best out of what our producers here locally can do. And this system is really designed to change things without necessarily changing things. You still use what you have on the farm. You might even bring a piece of equipment out of the fence row.
Right.
But that's what I want people to remember. We're farmers helping farmers in the best system possible.
And we appreciate you guys doing that so much. Energy Curve, guys, thank you for being here. And we appreciate you being with us tonight here on Rural America Live. We would love for you to be able to go to their website, use that promotion code RFDTV, and get your benefit hay. I'm Tammy Arender. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time here on Rural America's most important network.